my dears. Today's video is a little nerdy, a little strange, but it was a chapter in one of my textbooks a while ago and I can't stop thinking about it, and since it is Christmas Eve, I thought it would be fun to finally talk about it because it's just been on my list. And now we are here. And don't worry, I'm not working over Christmas time or like winter break time. I pre-filmed all my videos for winter break before I moved back home from college, so I'm actually off and probably reading a textbook for fun or building a Lego set or something. I don't know. But anyway, if you're new here, hi there, hello. I am a disabled, autistic, queer, trans actor, educator, composer, media analyst, and advocate. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm making world history with a thesis this spring. You can learn about that in the description. That's not what this video is about. And I'm a white young person with light brown shoulder length curly hair, and I am wearing a red plaid off the shoulder dress, and I have some holly in my hair, and I'm sitting in front of a bookshelf. And I'm super glad to have you here. You're welcome to like, comment, subscribe, leave a super thanks, whatever brings you joy, but no pressure. And today we're going to talk about disability in children's toys, why that matters, what the history is, and what we can learn from it. Because turns out toy anthropology, aka studying human cultures through toys children used, is actually a thing, which I think is really cool. So let's start with why toys matter more than we really think that they do. You see, toys are usually things for children or other people with growing minds. Toys are how they experience and explore the world, how they shape their understandings of that world, and these early exposures greatly impact how they're going to see the world for the rest of their lives. And this is why we should be so critical of children's media and content, because kids are too young to have the critical thinking skills to understand what is an issue and what is not an issue. And most importantly, this is how they learn what is normal and what is not normal. And studies about gender toys, for example, show that really young kids are happy playing with any toy, but once they're around 4 or 5, the boys are typically only going to want to play with the boy toys like trucks or blue Legos, and the girls will only want to play with the girl toys like dolls and pink Legos. They impose social norms on their toys, and their toys impose social norms on them. Toys hyperbolize taken for granted cultural constructions. They always mean something. The fact that we expect girls to play with dolls is directly related to the fact that we expect girls to be mothers and caregivers, for example. And that's why studying children's toys is a field of anthropology. It's how we learn about what social norms we impose onto our children and therefore ourselves and the rest of society. In the realm of disability toys and representation, there have been kind of 4 stages that we've seen. The first is DIY. There are no disability themed toys, so people take their mass-produced products and alter them either just for themselves or alter a bunch of them to attempt to mass produce and market them to a wider audience. The second one is the charity model, where larger companies will mass produce disability themed toys, but they'll do so under the charity model of disability, and they'll donate all of their funds or a portion of those funds to disability charities, which is great, but it also doesn't really help normalize disability very much. It still makes it this is a thing that exists and this is everybody else. Then we have the third stage, that is consumers turning these mass-produced products into popular culture by meaningfully integrating them into their everyday lives. Sure, they were made as a charity thing, but now they're reclaimed and they're a part of regular life. And then the final stage is large companies mass-producing disability-themed toys as normal and regular things that just exist. So let's look at disability toy history and see all of these stages in action. I love finding little rabbit hole research projects. This is so fun. Okay, so the first kinds of disability toys appeared around 1930 in hospitals, with the first records of this happening at the Lord Mayor Treloar Hospital in Hampshire, England. And the toys were used to help explain procedures to the children, particularly those undergoing treatments for polio. Staff at the hospital used everyday looking toys to prepare and encourage children and their families. The dolls helped to personalize the process. They were dressed in hospital clothes, some accompanied by their teddy bears, and in beds made with hospital sheets and blankets. One was even cocooned in a tiny iron lung. These mini patients were an attempt to create reassurance in the face of quite drastic and sometimes painful treatments. These dolls are important early examples of an emerging cultural recognition that children respond to and are reassured by toys, particularly ones that reflect their reality. There's something really sweet to me about that I can't really explain. Like, I think I'm just imagining a massive nursing team all wearing their white clothes and coats, you know, like they did back then in the 30s, walking into a child's room looking all professional and scary, and then having one of them pull a little doll in an iron lung out of his pocket and using it to show to the child and explain that everything was going to be okay and this is how it was going to happen, and that's just really cute. But anyway, so that's when we started to see that happening. DIY disability toys were the norm for the next 25 years-ish or so. And then the first mass-marketed disability toy was in 1955, and this was a 3 blind mice talking toy. And from what I can tell based on Google, it sang the 3 Blind Mice song, and the mice like ran in circles while the farmer's wife was in the middle kind of chasing them around. And then this was followed a few years later by the Mr. Magoo toy car, which is a little motorized car with a driver named Mr. Magoo, and he was blind and he had his eyes like squinted closed. I would assume that the point of this toy was that it's like fun to watch a blind driver of this little electric car running straight into things, and that's like entertaining. But fun fact, it prompted one of the first disability rights protests because the toy ridiculed and satirized people who were blind or had low vision. The next major instances of disability in toys were in the 1970s, when there were a bunch of action figures in the amputee cyborg aesthetic, kind of super crip like we've talked about before. There were G.I. Joe's Mike Power and Atomic Man and J.J. Arms and the $6 Million Man. And the idea here is that they were disabled, but also a site of action. They used their disability to be superheroes, staying hyper-masculine and resourceful as ever, which was very, people are coming home from the Vietnam War now disabled, but that makes them really manly and real fighters. And yeah, in the 1980s, Cabbage Patch dolls were all the rage, and they decided to create a group of dolls called Hal's Pals. These were mostly disabled. There was a doll without a left leg, a ballerina with hearing aids, a doll in a wheelchair, a doll with leg braces and canes, and a doll with a red-tipped cane and a little guide dog. And while these toys were mass-produced, unlike regular Cabbage Patch dolls that you could buy in a store, they were only available by mail order and were marketed specifically to pediatricians, physical therapists, and disabled kids, not the general wider public. Also, a portion of the profits went to charity as well. These dolls were not well received in the mainstream market. A lot of experts say that that's because these dolls were not part of the mass culture of all of the other dolls, and since disabled kids already felt like they kind of stuck out, they didn't want to feel like they were even more weird because they had a special doll that nobody else had. Now, after those dolls kind of bombed on the market, disabled toys didn't really appear again on the market until the 1996 Mattel release of Share a Smile Becky, colloquially known as Wheelchair Barbie, who was advertised with as much excitement as any other new Barbie. She was put on the regular shelves with all of the other ones, and her character description was mostly about how she's the school photographer and Barbie's really cool friend with a super rad outfit that matches her super cool wheelchair. And it sold out in under 2 weeks. They also had a lot of positive media coverage of disabled kids playing with these toys. They also released other versions such as Camp Counselor Becky and Paralympian Becky, and they made some large donations to charities, which is really cool. Now, the one misstep that I find truly hilarious about Share a Smile Becky is that although likely an unintended and overlooked aspect of the doll's creation, Becky's wheelchair was so realistic of the disability experience that it was excluded from the public space in the same way actual wheelchair users are. The chair was too large to fit in the elevator of the Barbie dream house, and Mattel would not retrofit the environment to be accessible. Which is wonderful, and I love that so much, and I think it's hilarious. But this did keep it in the news, and it kept conversation going, and it ultimately helped Mattel's bottom line. And since this was such a critical success, obviously, other companies decided it was time to make disabled dolls as well. In the early 2000s, Downey Creations released a line of Down syndrome dolls. They're really cute. But they were received much like the Cabbage Patch dolls were. I just don't think they were a big enough brand. And I also don't think that they did their advertising right, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. And then in 2012, American Girl added the option for you to get hearing aids for your dolls. I also had a wheelchair and crutches for my dolls when I was growing up. And in 2016, they released a diabetes care kit for your doll, which I think is really cute. And in 2017, they released a ball doll for kids with cancer, alopecia, or any other form of hair loss, which I really, really love. And in 2015, we saw a huge change in the disability toy landscape because a UK mom and writer by the name of Rebecca Atkinson created the hashtag #ToyLikeMe movement. And this is a hashtag under which people posted photos of their own DIY disabled toys to try to get the attention of major toy companies so they would actually put in the work to create real mass-produced disabled toys. Toys prompted by this community are not the first disability toys ever produced. However, the group is the first to gain such a momentum in positioning people with disability as a consumer group interested in seeing themselves represented in popular culture. This movement has been successful in getting several major toy brands to create and mass-produce disabled toys, which I think is really, really cool. We're at a point right now where we're seeing some disability toys exist as a sort of special order thing that you can buy separately. And we're still seeing disabled toys that exist solely under the charity model, but there's also a lot of disability toys that just come with toy sets and are integrated into the rest of the toys as completely normal and regular occurrences, which I think is great, and I think we're heading in the right direction with that. So that's all I have for you today. I just thought I would pop on, feed the algorithm monster a little bit, tell you some fun, simple research, but I hope that you learned something. I hope this was interesting to you. I definitely enjoyed it. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for learning. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, and if you don't, I hope you have a lovely day anyway. And remember, it is never too late to start over. I look forward to seeing you, my dear, in the next one.